it's Biddy Penny. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm using 3 Mintay pads. I have this one that I'm going to use first, which is Berrylicious. And you guys, I came up with such a fun hack for Mintay papers. I feel like I'm always having to hack these papers because the designs are so beautiful. It's really hard to just like start cutting them apart. But here I am, and I did this for all 3 paper pads. I just took the first set of images. So these paper pads are so cool. They have 12 designs and you get 4 of each design. That's my favorite, when companies give you more than one. Okay, now what I'm doing here, this is my formula. I'm taking the sheet of paper, I'm looking at the scene, and I'm kind of letting it dictate. I want to stay in the 3 1/4 to 3 3/4 range, or even 3. I worked with 3 and 3 was fine. So anywhere from 3 inches to 3 1/4, kind of staying in that range to cut my paper apart. Like with that cat, a little bit of its tail cut off was going to be okay, but I didn't want to make it a bobtail. Okay, now this one's a horizontal design, but I'm still just kind of staying in that range. I cut it down to 3 1/4 and 5 3/4. Or sorry, it was 3 3/4 by 5 3/4. And now I've got a couple of patterned papers here and then cut aparts. I'm using all of these. So basically you get 4 sets of these in Berrylicious. And the paper is double-sided and it's gorgeous and I absolutely love it. So now with 2 patterned sheets, I picked my favorite sides. I'm taking the glue off the top there. I'm cutting these 2 sheets down exactly the same. It's going to be 1 1/2 by 6 inches. Very simple. You're just cutting it down to 1 1/2. You'll get 4 strips from each pattern. Again, just taking the glue off here. Now, one question I get all the time, every time I post a Mintay video, people want to know, where do I get my Mintay? Well, I think it's definitely more readily available in the United States now than it was when I first started working with it. It was definitely a rare find back then. But I get mine from ASC Crafts on Etsy. And she always has a 10% off code for each month that you can use all month long on your orders. She does great customer service. I will leave her linked below. Okay, so you can go check her out. I've had really wonderful experience shopping with her. Okay, so this is very simple. But I'm going to show you so many variations. You guys, this formula is kind of like just so fun and a little bit contagious. Like I just couldn't stop myself with like 3 cards. I ended up making 9 cards very quickly, and they're all using the same formula, but there'll be slight variations. And I'll tell you, I didn't even get my embellishments out today, but if I had pulled out the ribbon and sequins or Nuvo drops, oh, they could have been even more spectacular. So I'm just taking one of each of those strips there. Now, I thought this was a scrap piece of paper. It turned out it wasn't, but that's okay. It was a printable, so I can always print more. I'm just putting this down, and that's when I discovered, like, oh, that wasn't a scrap. I'm just putting that down so that everything lays flat across when I put this on. Now I'm bringing in some cardboard. I keep cardboard over beside my desk. Any flat, good, clean pieces usually that I feel like I can use in this way or for a journal cover, I keep. And so I have it all nicely stacked on the side of my desk, and I'm pulling it out. Instead of using foam tape, I'm trying to use more cardboard these days. I heard a statistic that 9% of what we recycle actually gets recycled and the rest is waste. And I thought, okay, well, I really need to reuse things more. And so I'm trying to use like cardboard in these cases instead of like foam sheets or foam tape. I don't know. Thinking about my resources. Okay, now on this one, I'm staggering them, and this, is a vertical format. So the one I just made was horizontal. That's the only horizontal one I have for y'all today. Everything else is going to be vertical. You're probably wondering, because I haven't said it yet, these are all 5x7 cards. So this is a great way to use up your 6x6 paper pads and put it on a 5x7 card. Really love it. Minimal cutting here, a very simple formula for you guys to follow, and you can just make it work. Now, of course, I'm focusing on Mintay papers today because those are the ones I kind of struggle with, to be honest. It's like gorgeous paper. I'm such a sucker for it, but I do kind of struggle sometimes. If you go back in my channel, though, and you search Mintay, you'll see other designs. I made some really cool, like, trifolds with them before. And I love everything that I end up making with them, but I always have to think about them a little bit more. So I'm not doing anything different here. I'm doing the same thing. I'm just kind of staggering these pieces. Now, one thing that I'll do is I make sure that I have even corners and that this piece and the top piece are spaced evenly, on the card. And it's just something I'm doing. And then I just put this between them and I'm done with the front of the cards. Now, these are the pieces I had trimmed off. I'm going to use those. I have 3 of them on the insides of my cards. Now, this is the horizontal one. See that I cut off from there? So I want to make sure that that one goes with my horizontal card. So I'm going to go ahead and do that one first so I don't get carried away and forget and get all confused. It happens. So I'm just kind of playing around here, and I do want to use these cut aparts. I used the cut aparts on all of my cards today, from all 3 paper packs. In the past, I've kind of looked at these and thought they're so small. I really wish they would just give you fewer, make them bigger. And I do think that would be cool. But today I fell in love with these cut aparts. I feel like they're little, like, tokens. I don't know, that probably doesn't make sense, but I feel like they're just kind of like little medallions or tokens. Now, they do make like one side framed and the other side always has like the imagery from the kit. So I decided to take this piece of paper and I'm going to do some ink blending. So I am going to show you guys lots of variations today. So I hope you'll hang out and watch all the little tips and tricks you can gather along the way. For this one, I'm just ink blending. The size of this paper is 4 by 5 1/4, in case you're wondering. And I love this brush. I was thinking about it today when I was making these cards that I have had these makeup brushes from Amazon. They were super cheap. I have had them for over 3 years. They have served me so well in the craft room. I know that you can get some at the Dollar Tree as well. I know most card makers probably have some by now, but if you don't, if you're just getting started, these are wonderful brushes. These are JP&K. I don't know what that stands for. It's a cheap makeup brush on Amazon, but they're not all created equal, but I do really, really like those. So y'all can see what I was doing there, just gluing things down. Now I'm going to clip my cut aparts. This is the only scraps I had left were my cut aparts. All the other paper is used. That's what I like. You're not going to have a bunch of scraps left over. It's awesome. So I save my plastic packaging every time I get some, or I use up a paper pad or whatever. And I save it for times like these, and although it wasn't like a perfect fit, I made it work and it keeps my paper together. Okay, so now we've got Childhood and Urban Jungle. I love this one. This one is like so me. Oh, I got so excited when I found this paper pad. So here I am. I'm taking all of these first designs. So it's 12 designs, but it's on 6 sheets of paper, right? Because it's double-sided. So I feel like y'all should know that in case you want to try this formula with something other than Mintay, you would need 5 sheets that are your patterns and like 1 sheet of cut aparts if you want. You don't have to have the cut aparts. Like I said, they're just kind of little tokens. They're just little finishing touches. So that's not 100%, a deal breaker or anything. So now I'm picking my 3 scenes from this one, and I'm going to use the rainbow side of that. It's hard to do with Mintay. It's easy to love all the sides, that's for sure. Um, but I have some other ideas of how I'm going to use these Mintay papers, and I'll try to do it soon. I'm going to make some shoestring journals with them. It's just an idea I have. So stay tuned. I'll have that at some point. So now I'm looking at my paper. I'm not worrying too much right now about the number. It did end up being 3 3/4, but I'm looking more at the imagery. And I like that this is still a full scene with lots of interest, and I liked the way that worked. Now this one was a little more troublesome. Like that's 3 3/4, which I think is actually what I went with. I didn't want to cut off this cat's arm over here, so I did the 3 3/4 again so I could think about using both pieces. I really like this card and I like how it turned out, but I did have to alter it a little. So here I'm kind of looking at it and I decide I'm going to fussy cut this. And at first, you can always edit later and take more out, but you can't really add it back in. So at first, I left more here than I'll end up leaving in the end. In the end, I will clean up the top row of this a little bit more. And I'm doing a real loose fussy cut here. This is everything you're seeing is all that I did. It's just a little. So I'm liking it much better. I move on to cutting my next scene. Again, I'm just kind of looking at the paper. This one I did 3 inches. So see, it's flexible. And that 3-inch piece is still going to work perfectly for a card front. So now I'm just going to cut down my pieces here to 1.5 inches. I know that one I actually cut a little bigger, but it all works out. I'm going to leave it big and I'll use it just like it is. So even that tells you that my 1.5 inches is not like a hard and fast rule. This is all my simple formula to get you guys going, to get you chopping up these paper pads that you might have in your stash, and you're like me and you're like, oh my gosh, they're almost too pretty to cut, or I don't know what to do with them. So it's inspiration for that, but don't feel locked into anything ever. Make it all your own. So I felt like this piece was going to be my hardest piece to use. And it's funny, it ended up being one of my favorite cards. But I just felt like with the board cut in half, it might be the hardest. So here's what I did. I cut off that top loop and the top part of the pennant. And that cleaned up that top edge a lot more. See how different that is? And I like it a lot better that way. I'm deciding, because my formula has been to use, 2 different papers behind the focal point. And so I'm kind of playing around with it a little bit here. And I left this in for you guys so that maybe you are thinking as you're watching this, what if she did this? What if she did that? So I left it in so that, we could do those what ifs together here. I decide that I want to stagger these so that I can put a sentiment down at the bottom. When I was looking at this paper, it brought a stamp set to mind, and I wasn't sure because I hadn't pulled the stamp set out in a long time. I wasn't sure that it would work or fit, but it just kind of harkened the same feelings that the stamp set gives me. And so I'm going to pull that out of my stash after I glue these 2 pieces down and have some fun. I am going to stamp up a sentiment to go down there and with some imagery. So this is the stamp set. It's called Knick Knacks and it's from Paper Smooches. You guys, I love Paper Smooches. I haven't bought from them in years, but I love them. This set is from 2011, so it's not, not new. If you guys enjoy people who are busting their stash, then, things like this happen. I'm going to use old stamp sets. But hopefully you can just get the idea of like how I did, where it's like this stamp set has always given me the same feeling that this paper is giving me, and they just happened to work out. There was a xylophone, and there was a fun sentiment that I think took this card from being like a little kitty card or a welcome little one card to being actually a really fun adult birthday card. So the sentiment says, "You've aged beautifully." And I just think that's so fun. So yeah, I think this is going to be in a card for a friend. I'm playing around here with this color and with this game piece. I knew I wanted to do a real pale color, so a second generation. So I stamp it off and I started creating kind of a pattern on this scrap piece of paper. And some of it's off screen. I'm sorry, it's a big scrap and I was kind of zoomed in. But I'm just creating a little pattern and a little kind of scene for my sentiment that I'm going to add to this. So now I'm bringing my paper in so you can see. I'm going to keep going with this pattern, and I'm actually going to use this strip that's kind of like a border strip on the inside of the card. So it's a lot of fun, think about what stamp sets you have, incorporate those. You can bring in some colors that I thought these colors all went really well with a paper pad. Match your colors to your paper pad the best you can. Work with what you've got. Maybe you don't have a ton of supplies. I understand. Use markers, crayons, use colored pencils. Here, I'm going to use my inks as my watercolor. Maybe you don't have watercolors. You have the inks, but you don't have the watercolors. So I decided instead of pulling out my watercolors, I would keep it simple and make sure everything matched and just use the 4 colors of my game pieces as my little metal xylophone pads. And I didn't worry about what order I was putting them in. I didn't think about that at all. I just grabbed some color, created a little pattern, and colored this up. Okay, so here it is. I'm kind of lining it up on my card and I'm just going to whack it. And that's it. And then now I have a border for the inside of my card. I think this piece brought the whole card together. It made me fall in love with it. I actually just can't wait to use it. This paper pad, I remember falling in love with it because it really makes me think of my childhood. Xylophones, stuffed animals, chalkboards, and hopscotch and rainbows. That's what my childhood was made of. I don't know about y'all, but I could really connect with this one. And so I think it's really fun now. With friends my age, I imagine that they'll be able to relate to it too and to give one of these cards to them. Here's where I'm showing you that it's called Knickknacks and it's from 2011. And you know what? This stamp set's discolored. Like, see how it's turning yellow? It still stamps perfectly. Don't throw out your stamp sets because they've aged. We all have. Some more beautifully than others. Oh my goodness. Okay, so now this is kind of risky. On this one, I'm stamping my sentiment in that front picture. It says, "So proud of you." I'm actually making this for my daughter. I'm going to give it to her at the end of homeschool this year. You'll see more of that card at the end. I'm going to show you all the cards at the end of the video, just like I always do, and how I finish the insides. You'll get to see some of the stamps I used. Okay, here's another idea for you. We're using the same formula. The only thing I've done is I've cut a matted layer for the center piece that's 1/4 of an inch bigger length and width. Okay, so this was, I think this is 4 by 6 1/4. Now I'm going to use my scissors to rough it up, and this paper is thin, so I do end up tearing it with my big, hefty, awesome scissors, and that's okay. It's not a deal breaker. It's going to be mostly covered up anyways, so it's all going to work out. I don't mind the texture. I wanted texture. That's why I roughed up the edges in the first place. So now I've got that matted. And I'm going to just say, this looks good just like this. I mean, I don't really think you need a whole lot more, but I wanted to stick with the formula. So I decided I'm still going to bring in these pieces and put them on the sides, and I like it as well. Um, Now, that's a lot of paper that would be just glued underneath. And I know sometimes we worry about what we're wasting under our glued layers. So you can cut some off. I just cut off 1/2 inch. So now those are 1 inch strips, which I'll use on my next card. Um, this formula is so forgiving. It really is. Now, I didn't glue all the way to the edges on the right and left side because I wanted to be able to stick these pieces underneath. I'm just kind of playing around, flipping them around, seeing which sides I might want to use. I'm going to add some glue. And now I can tuck this under here because I didn't glue it all the way to the edge. And it's shorter, and I like that. So I'm just trying to eyeball so that each side is level with one another. And the matted layer hangs over the top and bottom edge, which I like that aspect of it. And just like that, the front of our card is done. And actually, all of my cards are done. So here are the cards I made today. I made 3 with 2 of the paper pads, and I made 4 with the last one using the same number of sheets. It's because I cut one of my sheets to 3 by 6, right? So I was able to get 2 card fronts. All right, here I think, I'll go back and probably add ribbon embellishments or sentiment there. You could add Nuvo drops. I didn't have time to really finish these cards. I didn't feel like today, but I still wanted to share them with you. I really love them. I mean, this paper is just so beautiful. It doesn't take a lot. And then here's how I played and tore edges of my paper on the inside, used the same strips. I wasn't doing any extra cutting. I didn't have anything left over, no tiny pieces I don't know what to do with. And I really love these cards. You know what? You could buy 1 paper pad. You could make 12 cards like this. And what a beautiful gift that you could give someone. And these paper pads are usually about $6. So you could give someone 12 gorgeous cards that cost you about $6 and some time, but not a lot of time. These went really quickly. Oh, I love this one so much. Oh, it's so cute. And that little token piece with the stick figure up there in the top right. Oh, so cute. And I think it ties together the whole chalkboard look. And this is for my little Cece. So proud of you. Oh, the places you'll go. She loves science, and I know she'll love this. She's been homeschooled the last 2 years, so I'm going to give her that at the end of the year. And then this, I'm definitely a crazy plant lady, you guys. So I have a crazy plant lady stamp set from Fun Stamper's Journey that I might go back in and add some sentiments to these. Again, I just ran out of time. I actually made these before going to work. So that's how quick they were. And then, yeah, I had to get up early. But I love them. I hope you give this a try. This is such a great way to use up your paper. An easy formula. Maybe you haven't been making very many 5x7s, but you can use your 6x6 to make gorgeous 5x7 cards. Here, I just kept 3 of the cut aparts together. So here, the cut aparts, I just cut a strip of them. And I love the way that looks. The sky's the limit, you guys. Play around with this. Have some fun. Make some cards. Cut up that Mintay paper. I know how hard it can be. And make some cards. All right. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.